if you guys like the Dragon Ball content that I provide on this channel, then make sure you guys punch that subscribe button with notifications enabled to be the first to receive all the latest in Dragon Ball content and be a part of the Dragon Ball squad. And also don't forget to follow me on these social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, to stay connected with me at all times. Hashtag Dragon Ball Squad. Thank you so very much for your support. Now let's begin. With the leader of the Pride Troopers, Toppo, having to be backed into a corner by both Android 17 and Golden Frieza in the upcoming Dragon Ball Super episode for episode 125, but the question is, how strong is Toppo going to be when going up against Golden Frieza and Android 17 at the exact same time? As right now we are going to further analyze, break down, and dissect the events shown during the Dragon Ball Super episode 125 preview to further get a better understanding as to what's to come in the following episode. As we go into the first shot of the Dragon Ball Super episode 125 preview, with Android 17 having to release a barrage of attacks on Toppo. And what's interesting about this is we don't have any confirmation on 17 having to survive against Toppo, or if there's a possibility for 17 to actually go. Now, there is a very high possible chance that 17 might get wrung out during Dragon Ball Super episode 125, because since there's only 6 minutes left and the universe survival arc is going to end during Dragon Ball Super episode 131, it only makes sense for somebody to go. And I think that more or less 17's gonna have his moment with Toppo, and I think that by the very end, it's going to be 17's last moments in the tournament as he battles against Toppo. Now, as we go into the next shot here, I personally love how we see a first-person point of view of 17 firing off all these ki blasts, and we get to see Mr. Eggman Toppo just running alongside the rocks, and it looks very cool in the essence to where he's evading 17, but remember, 17 has an infinite amount of, stamina and ki. He can just fire off as much as he wants, but the thing is, as we go into the third shot here, Toppo actually takes the blast head on as the narration goes on to state, the showdown with Toppo begins. And looking at both the third and the fourth shots of this preview, Toppo seems to be taking 17's hits, but it doesn't look like he's taking any damage at all, which is a problem because 17 is a god tier fighter, and seeing how, he's just blasting off at Toppo and Toppo having to not take any damage at all is a problem. So post your comments down below if you guys believe that 17 is going to be the next one to go, as we transition into the next shot here, and we get to see a very cool shot of both Goku and Vegeta. Now, their auras, the Kaioken aura and the perfected mastered Super Saiyan Blue aura, seems to have disappeared. And according to what we see and how they look like in this preview, they look like they're beaten, they're tired, and they seem to be a bit concerned based on the drops of sweat coming down from their forehead. Now, you can only make the assumption here that perhaps maybe Jiren did get the best of them, as we go into the next shot here, as they reuse the exact same animation of Jiren walking during episode 109 against his fight with Goku. They reuse that, of course, you get to see in the background, different background, but it says number 17 pushes with his infinite energy while Frieza attempts a sneak attack. Obviously, they're not talking about Jiren, they're talking about Toppo. So Jiren looks like, again, he's unfazed by anything that Goku and Vegeta are dishing out against them, as we transition into the next two shots here, as we get to see both Goku and Vegeta awaiting Jiren. And I really cannot wait for this because they look to be so serious and so focused, and I love how Goku and Vegeta are going into this with literally the mentality of do or die, as we go into the next shot here, and we finally get to see how both of them once again engage with Jiren. So I don't think that this episode is more or less going to focus on this fight, as I do believe that in the end, they're going to give us a small little glimpse of what's happening between Goku and Vegeta during this fight, but I think in the long run, the conclusion of this fight is probably going to occur during episode 126 with Vegeta, as we transition into the next shot here, and 17 is using his barrier to escape Toppo. And the reason for that is because I do think that 17 and Frieza have a plan, and I think that plan will be put into motion as they attack him, as we go into the next shot here, as it goes on to state, just when it looks like they can win, Toppo finally shows his true power. And as we look at Toppo, he seems to be very enraged, he looks to be very angry, and I'm really happy for this because finally we get to see characters push Toppo into a corner and seeing what he can truly do. And based on both of these shots having to be shown, Toppo looks like he's getting pushed back by an immense blast. Either A, he's shooting out a barrage of attacks, or B, he's getting pushed back, which solidifies this statement and Toppo having to get pushed back in the next shot here, as we get to see a very interesting showcase with Toppo having to push an attack of this magnitude back. And what I'm really interested in knowing is who is the one doing the attack. Is it Frieza? Is it a combined effort by 17 and Frieza? As we transition into the next shot here, and Toppo's suit is beginning to rip. Now, the reason why this is so important is because predating back to the Zen Exhibition fight with Goku, the reason why Toppo was so enraged in the first place was because his suit, when it was originally ripped by Goku, Toppo felt as if it was besmirched. And Toppo took such offense by this that he was going to show Goku his true power right before the Daishinkan actually put a stop to the fight. So in this shot here, we get to see how his clothing is beginning to rip. And that's a bad thing. I mean, especially for Toppo, it's a bad thing because as we go into the next shot here, Toppo looks to be very angry. I mean, notably so because he really takes pride on rocking this suit. And this suit has everything to do with what he stands for. As we go into the next shot here, as we get to see Frieza, he's trolling. He has like that merp-a-derp face going on. As the narration states, he sure looks like a god of destruction. Things are really heating up. So I can only assume that Frieza is going to be firing off a barrage of death beams in Toppo's direction, and maybe, just maybe, these death beams can actually have an effect, but I really don't think so, considering that Toppo by the very end is still going to be in the ring. As we transition into the next shot here, and this I find to be very interesting for a number of reasons. Number one, the way Toppo looks in this promotional shot, as it says next time on Dragon Ball Super, his entire suit is ripped. His suit is gone, and we get to see this purplish pinkish like aura begin to glow around Toppo. Now, many people have speculated that perhaps maybe Toppo has officially reached the level of a Hakaishin, the level of a deity such as Beerus, such as Belmont, such as Arak, such as Liquor, and it's kind of hard to fathom if that's the case, but it did go on to state that this is the power of the god of destruction Toppo. So interestingly enough, this shot reminds me of the same exact promotional shot that we got during the summer of Goku and his back, and the promotional quote having to state something terrible is going to happen. And with that being said, this is going to be the first time that Toppo is going to trigger in activating this power, as we get to see in the next shot here, as the title states, with imposing presence, God of Destruction Toppo descends. And all the way out in the distance, we get to see how, if you pay attention to the ground, whatever blast it was that was pushing him back is now gone. So if you guys were assuming that maybe the blast was going to ring him out, it doesn't, because he's still at the edge of the ring. As you guys can see all the way out in the background, he's still there, but he's glowing. He's glowing because obviously he's emitting this energy, and by the very end, the next shot here, we get to see how it says don't miss it, and Frieza seems to be surprised. Frieza seems to be surprised, as notably enough, in the final shot here, we get to see Toppo in all his glory. Now, two things. Number one, his skin is different. Number two, his eyes and his aura all around him are glowing. So we have to ask ourselves as to how relative is Toppo now going to be going up against Golden Frieza and Android 17, considering that his power is going to equal that of a Hakaishin. So everything that we've always wondered about Toppo is going to be answered in the upcoming episode. How strong he is, if in fact he's going to ring out 17 and or Frieza during this fight, because we don't really have any official answers if he's going to or not. But this shot showcases a very unique side of Toppo that we haven't seen before. To me, he reminds me of Hulk Hogan just because of his looks alone, but I'm really curious to see as to what he's going to do. And I do believe that I'm calling it right now that Toppo is going to eliminate Android 17, as to me it would make sense to see that. But as for Frieza, that's something entirely different. I don't see Toppo pulling it off against Frieza, but this is where you guys come in. Post your comments down below. Do you guys believe that perhaps maybe it is possible for Toppo to ring out Frieza? Do you guys believe that Toppo is going to be relative to a Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken times 20 Goku, a Golden Frieza, a Mastered Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta? Post your comments down below, guys, and what are your overall expectations for Toppo going into next week's episode? Because we haven't seen anything from him, but I do believe that in the end, if nobody tosses him out by episode 125, then he's going to remain until, I think, Ultra Instinct Goku returns in giving Toppo that fight and ringing him out after that. So post your comments down below, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. If you guys are new, then be sure to go ahead and hit that subscribe button, guys. Turn on all notifications. Tune back in for more, and I'll be seeing each and every single one of you guys down in the comment section below. Cue my outro, bitch.